Hey everybody. Okay, so today I want to talk about public transit life skills. So if you have the benefit of living in a community with public transit, I cannot encourage you enough to get on the train. So I grew up riding the train a ton, often by myself, starting by like age 8, which is a little intense, but it was very free range back then. But this past year, I realized that, my kids really did not have very much train experience, and it was really bothering me. So I just decided to take whatever opportunities, not in a heavy-handed way, but just whenever we could, opt for train instead of car. And it turned out to be the most amazing experience. And in just like a handful of trips, my kids already were feeling so much more confident, so much so that my 14-year-old headed downtown, used commuter rail, used various train systems, can ride the bus, did it all by herself with a friend. And in fact, her friend had never ridden the train before, so she taught her these life skills. So all of this is just coming together to inspire me to hopefully inspire you to get out there. I was talking to a public transit friend of mine. She works for the Department of Transportation, and we were talking about how it's really up to parents to expose their kids to this. So I have 6 key tips that I want to share with you. Just basic things you need to teach your kids about the train. The first one, buying train fare. So go to the train station, you teach them how to use the self-serve kiosks. I also taught my older daughter how to use the M-Ticket app in Boston to get commuter rail passes. I'll share a link to a blog post that I've recapped all of this in there, but there's a link to an MBTA fare primer for Boston that breaks down all the different types of fares depending on what you're going to ride. And I should note that in Boston, kids 11 and under ride free when they're accompanying a paying adult, so there's no reason not to try it. Okay, second, really important general map awareness is to look at the map and identify your endpoints for the line you're riding, as well as transfer points or important transfer points. So this will come in handy later when I'm talking about being aware of inbound and outbound, but it's just really important to know which direction you're going to be going, obviously, and then important transfers. Even if they don't happen to be on your route that day, it's a good thing just to kind of start building the understanding of where things intersect. Okay, third, map your route. Avoid station paralysis. I have this thing about bumbling around and looking like you don't know where you're going. I feel like you're a prime target for shenanigans if you do that. So when my daughter went downtown with her friend, she told me where they wanted to go, and we just looked at a Google Street Map with the train stations. I think I Googled on the map function, train stations near whatever. So that way they can see an actual map layout of where the train stations are, which is really important because the actual train map that you'll see inside the trains and the stations is just pictorial. So it doesn't tell them where things are in relation to where they're going. So take a look at that in advance. That's really, really important. She told me where they wanted to go, and we talked about some routes and transfers and stuff. Okay, I mentioned before, but it warrants a separate bullet. Number 4 is teaching your kids inbound and outbound awareness. So I talked before about how you want to teach them the endpoints, and that will be super important both inside the station and outside the station for knowing which direction to go. Inside it will tell you which platform to get on, obviously very important, but outside in Boston there are some street level entrances that are different depending on whether you're going in or out. Super important. Okay, number 5 is my 8-year-old's favorite tip, and it is to keep track of your train stops. So I've taught my kids where to look for the maps inside. They're usually kind of on the wall or above the doors. How to listen for when the conductor is calling out train stops, and then if necessary, where to look out the window, on the walls, if you want to double check where your train is stopped at in case you need to dash off. So yeah, it's so cute. My 8-year-old, we call her the train master, the station master, because she keeps us on target. She keeps track of the stations. She calls out, tells us where we're at, and she tells us how many stops we have to go. It's so awesome. Okay, and the last one, I totally understand that some people are intimidated by using public transit because it's a very physical experience. But that's actually a reason why it's good to get your kids out there, so they're developing life skills about being out in the world. So there are 4 key things that are kind of rolled into this tip. One is keep track. So this is all under the bucket of physical awareness, but one thing I've taught my kids is keep track of your belongings at all times, keep them close to you. 2, that the doors of trains will open on different sides depending on the station. Sometimes they'll call that out the conductor will call that out as you're approaching, sometimes not, but just so you know, to be aware that you might have to either move to the side to let people in and out, or just cross sides if it's too busy. Okay, 3rd, if you're sitting, no manspreading, okay? You just take up 1 seat's worth on your seat and on the floor, and that's it. And finally, really important social skill, life skill, is if you are sitting and somebody enters the train that needs a seat more than you, perhaps somebody older, perhaps a parent with a bunch of kids, somebody who's, visually impaired or what have you, offer your seat up. They might not always take it, but it's good to just offer it and let somebody else sit. So those are some really, really simple things you can do to get your kids more train aware. Again, as I said at the beginning, these 6 tips and maybe a half dozen, adventures around on public transit, and my 14-year-old was riding by herself. So it's so awesome. So yeah, give it a go. Let me know how it goes, and I hope you enjoy your train rides with your kids.